Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the 677th edition of the Feuerstein's Fire American Soccer Show. I'm your host, Daniel Feuerstein. I'll give you an American perspective of our clubs, leagues, players, national team, and other fabulous moments. Get your daily reading from me and other writers over at Beyond the 90, at beyondthe90.substack.com, and, of course, locally at Bad Dog Sports, helping out JJ Pavlik till he gets better, and they'll be returning to ajmsportsfc.com. The chat room is open on YouTube. Come on in, discuss amongst yourselves if you like. If you have a question for me, I'll try to answer it to the best of my abilities. And as we get ready for another exciting show here tonight, there is something I wish to talk about. And, of course, to talk about that, it would normally take a lot of work to figure out certain situations that are really out of our control. And this particular situation involves a Gio Reyna. Now, of course, the chatter throughout social media has been about why is it a talented player like Gio Reyna cannot get on the field for Borussia Dortmund? Well, obviously, the head coach doesn't see any value in him, unfortunately. And obviously, you know how I feel. I want to see all of our players be on the pitch, whether it's for an MLS club or a European club. If they get lucky in South America, I hope they get on the pitch then too. But unfortunately, with Gio Reyna, the problems are a lot bigger than probably, performance on the pitch. And what is that problem? What is that one issue that probably no one wants to talk about, that no one wants to at least admit that there is a problem? And it stems back all the way to the 2022 FIFA World Cup in Qatar. And unfortunately, what was it? His attitude, the way that he spoke out. Now, look, I am not one to defend Greg Berhalter here for this entire situation. I will never defend the man. But Giovanni Reyna as a player could not explode like he did at Greg Berhalter. He was still the head coach over in Qatar for the FIFA World Cup. Now, granted, I didn't like it that Gio didn't get a lot of playing time, but still though, Greg had to watch his minutes because he was coming back from injury. And that is something that Reyna needs to understand. He has to understand. And why is that? I'll tell you why. Because he was coming back from injury and he had to go, Greg Berhalter had to go somewhere else. And then what else is the issues that you're not seeing Gio Reyna being on the pitch? Well, it's really simple. Mommy and daddy. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. The pathetic attitude of Claudio Reyna and his wife running to the principal's office to attempt to get Greg Berhalter fired because he wasn't playing Gio in most of the World Cup matches from the group stage and the round of 16 game where they got destroyed. by the Dutch. Even though he did go and play that entire second half against the Netherlands, it still wasn't enough. Now, as I've said, I'm not one to defend Greg Berhalter for his tactics or for his formations because I think, once again, Greg Berhalter is not a good international head coach. He was a terrible decision by U.S. Soccer. He did not do the job he was supposed to do. And even bringing him back was the wrong thing to do. But if I'm a player and if I'm here to show the head coach of the national team why I deserve to start, and even though I'm coming back from injury, why I still deserve to start, the way Gio handled it and the way his parents also handled this entire situation, and pardon my language when I say this, it basically has the smell of high school bitch. That's right. High school bitch, meaning immaturity at a high school level where we are adults here. This is supposed to be adults in the room. And even though Gio acted arrogantly, and he shouldn't have, Gio Reyna has compromised himself, and his parents have also compromised their son because it looks like no one in Europe wants to touch him. It looks like nobody in Europe wants to give him an opportunity. And every one of you complaining, crying, whining, you don't understand why Gio is not being considered for any of these clubs in Europe. Well, that's the reason. Giovanni Reyna has screwed himself, and his father and his mother have double screwed him with how they went to U.S. Soccer about Greg Berhalter and what he did in the past to get him fired. You know, once again, it's a situation where it really is tremendous, and how rich that Claudio and his wife had to go out there and find a way to sabotage not just the head coach of the U.S. men's national team, but a friend of theirs, Reyna and Berhalter, New Jersey natives, played at the same Catholic high school, the same Catholic school in soccer. And I mean, tarnishing his own name just to gain revenge on Berhalter for not using their son for the majority of the World Cup back in Qatar. And now, I mean, sure, it would have been nice to have Gio Reyna on the Gold Cup team, but Dortmund said no, he's going to stay with them, and he only had 12 minutes in the Club World Cup. Just 12 minutes. And while I could sit here in frustration for Gio Reyna and his lack of minutes for Dortmund in the Club World Cup, I can absolutely say with no uncertainty, I can definitely tell all of you he got what he deserved. Now, I don't wish that on any American player playing abroad or playing for his MLS club domestically. But Gio Reyna needs an attitude adjustment. And even though there are many people who are saying, well, Gio's got to find a way to play somewhere in Europe, or, how dare he go back to MLS because that would be a negative going back. I will say this, and let me just say this right now. If Gio Reyna does return to Major League Soccer at the age of 22, 23, in some ways, it's worth it. And I'm not saying this because I think this would be a great a great moment for an MLS club to get a talent like that to come to them. But he needs to be humbled. Gio Reyna needs to be humbled. He needs to learn a very valuable lesson to not cross the head coach of the national team. And at the same time, to not display a piss poor attitude against your head coach on the national team and then probably showing it on your club. Take your medicine like a man, Gio. And Claudio, let me also say this right now. I'm here to tell you this right now. And that is this. What you did to your son, it's double worse. I am just appalled at your attitudes and your arrogance. I'm sorry. If you're going to disagree with me, fine, disagree with me. I don't care. Giovanni Reyna, in my opinion, needs to be humbled. No European club wants him. No one from England, no one else from Germany, Italy, Spain, the Netherlands, Scotland, nowhere else. Giovanni Reyna is basically a man on an island all by himself, and his parents are with him as well. What else can I say? What else can I do? Nothing. Nothing I can say or do that will change this. The only person that has to accept changing is Gio. He needs to change. He needs an attitude adjustment. And if going back to MLS is that attitude adjustment, well, then you know what? I think that's fine and dandy. And then he can go back and say, I can play in Europe and I will be a changed person. That's all I can say. That's all that needs to happen. And that's the end of it. And that's the end of this story. Ladies and gentlemen, I've got a great show for you tonight. My first guest, of course, he is the historic broadcaster was on television, now on radio of DC United, talking about the Troy Lesense sacking, the one and only, my opinion as always, a Colin Joes Award winner. He should be in the Soccer Hall of Fame, the one and only Dave Johnson joining me tonight. Dave, welcome back to the show. First time here on StreamYard, you and me. How are you, and what is going on in our nation's capital today? Oh,
I've only been doing this 40 years. You'd figure I'd know how to turn the microphone on, but I'll get it straight. I'll get it straight. One of these days. It is our first time on StreamYard, so I don't know how to turn the mic off. But it's a simple thing, and simple things have always befuddled me. But first of all, thank you for the kind words. It's great to be back with you, as I think now is my 30th season in the entire time with Major League Soccer, and you've been on this journey. You know, I'm just so gratified that we're having these debates and discussions, and the national team is that we're at a point where we're disappointed right now with the U.S. national team. At one point, you know what? Nobody cared. And,
exactly.
And so there's a big difference, and I think when there's debate and criticism, that shows somebody cares. Back in 1989, I always tell the story, the game Trinidad, and when the United States qualified for the first World Cup in 40 years or 50 years, whatever. I couldn't find anybody to watch it with me. That's the way it was back in 1989. As I shared the story, the first broadcast I ever did, 1988, with the Maryland Bays and Fort Lauderdale Strikers, I had to pay to get on the air. So things have changed. And you made some great points about Gio, and I know the question is about Troy Lesense, But see, this is what happens when you get a broadcaster for years that was doing news radio. It was always limited to 2 minutes. Now I feel like I've got more time, and I'll bore you with stories here. But your points about Gio Reyna, I think, yeah, come back to MLS. And you know what? That's not the worst thing. Play. You know what? Landon Donovan did some pretty special things for this U.S. national team, and he did his soccer work stateside. Yes, you could, and we've got more players than ever before actually playing at top European clubs. So you would say, well, then we must be world beaters. Well, that's not the case. It's still a team sport. It's still about what's up here, quite frankly. They're all good to get out there. In every sport, when you reach this level, he just needs playing time. And if it's in Major League Soccer, you know what? That's no shame. Now, to your question, I told you we get to the answer before 8:30 about what's going on in Washington. Troy Lesense came in with a great attitude, and you know him up there from his time in the Red Bulls. It's a great story about how he got into the playoffs. I believe Troy Lesense is going to have success somewhere else. I really believe he's going to have it with DC United. And you know what? Last year almost made the playoffs. Crazy enough, we missed out on goal differential, but the real reason we missed out is we were a bad home team. We didn't win games at home, which is nuts. This year, for again, he respected the culture of the team, was trying to bring it all back together, and it was making. It wasn't just talk. It from the way he was decorating the training center, which these are little details that are important for every clubs, and this is for every sport. I see this with the NBA Wizards. I mean, you know, players want an environment. Yeah. Shows there is a history of success that we're trying to attain. I just think when you get into the season, we got in a stretch where it just wasn't changing. And I think they believe I don't think this is a contender necessarily, but having said that, I get the argument, well, he doesn't have the players but the cupboard is not bare. I mean, there's a Christian Benteke. There's internationals on that field, Kai Rolls. So I think they can probably get more out of the team. And I think, at least I hope that's what the thinking is, because that's why you change a coach. Because a coach doesn't score goals. A coach doesn't play. So there has to be, in my opinion, if I was on the others making those decisions, the only way I'd make a coaching change is if somehow I believed somewhere we can get more out of this team. And it's always about fit and opportunity for coaches, and it's about fit and opportunity for players.
I agree. I absolutely agree with you, Dave. And, look, it's been such a long time since DC United has, forget about just winning a trophy, just being competitive enough to make the playoffs and to at least be a threat in the Eastern Conference playoffs. I know it's been frustrating for everyone in our nation's capital, in Maryland, Virginia as well, that supports this club. To see him get sacked after a loss in the Open Cup against Nashville on the road was very shocking to me. I thought at least he did finish the season this year, Troy.
Yeah, well, again, it gets back to, I wouldn't have been surprised if that was the case. Because look, there was a result earlier in the season, and I'm never, again, in any sport, I'm only in favor, or favor may not be the right word, but I think a coach is the right decision to make a change. If he feels, or the management feels, somehow the message is not getting through, or that old cliche is lost the locker room. And I'll give you an example of how coaches know it too. This is, before the Capitals, and this is in 2007, before they got on the incredible run with a guy named Alex Ovechkin. So I know it's a soccer show, but I'm sure everybody knows who Alex Ovechkin is. That season, they were doing terribly. And I still remember, I was doing a Wizards game in Charlotte, and I called back to the news station, and they had lost at home on the Wednesday before Thanksgiving, which was always a marquee game in in Washington to the Atlanta Thrashers. At that point, the Thrashers were terrible, and they lost like 5-1. And I remember thinking to myself at the time, that's the kind of result that probably gets a coach fired. But I didn't think necessarily it was going to happen. It was a Wednesday before Thanksgiving. Then I get a call saying, "Hey, Dave, you might want to get out to the training facility on Thanksgiving morning." And sure enough, they made a coaching change. Ovechkin got on a tear. They made the playoffs, and hockey, quite frankly, has never been the same in this town. But there was a wonderful coach, a guy named Glenn Hanlon, and George McPhee once told me the story that Glenn Hanlon, the coach, had actually come to him and said, "George, I got to admit, I feel like I'm just not getting through. I'm not getting through to the locker room, the players." And George, said, "Look, let's give it some time. We got a homestand coming up. Let's see what happens." The homestand started with that Atlanta game, and it didn't go well. So there were points of this season for DC United, 7-1 loss at home to Chicago with the fans booing. You could say, "Oh, is that going to be the change?" Now, based on the reports, and that Renee Weilers is coming in from Switzerland, which it's not been agreed to or announced, clearly this thought process had been going on a long time. With that, they're not replacing Troy Lesense with the assistant coach to ride out the rest of the season. You don't call up a guy that is coached in Switzerland and all over the place on 24 hours notice and say, "Hey, Renee, what are you doing this weekend? We got a job open." So I think the other part, when you look at who eventually ends up replacing Troy Lesense, I think there was a feeling for a while. How long, I don't know, but I think a feeling for a while that this was not going the way they wanted it to go. And they thought and they believe they can achieve more this season.
And obviously, Kevin Flanagan will be the interim head coach for the rest of the season. I believe he is with the club in a certain capacity. I believe it's for the Youth Academy.
Yeah, just no, he may not be interim for the rest of the season. I mean, it's based on, from what I understand, Renee has to get his work papers in order, which I think we will have. That's what I'm saying. A full time. If it was all right, this guy, and we've had it happen here before. Quite frankly, Tom Sohn finished out a wonderful friend and a good soldier in soccer in so many ways. But this is a case where they're actually bringing somebody in, and I think sooner than later. But it depends on the paperwork. So does that mean this weekend in Columbus? I doubt it. But I think we've got a lot of things coming up, the transfer window, et cetera. And I think a new coach will probably be in place for DC United.
Yeah. I mean, I know the media is frustrated. I know the fans are frustrated. I'm sure you and your analyst partner is frustrated to see how DC United has not been DC since the early days. Your own personal thoughts, if you could.
Well, there'll never be, I don't think, and I don't think we're seeing it of late even. I mean, those early days, the first 5 years, I mean, DC United was rock and roll soccer. I mean, it was a swagger. It was, and I just think it's a tougher league now. And that's not to diminish at all what that first team did. Now with a 30-team league, and I just don't, see dynasties forming, if you will. But you try different things. Wayne Rooney came here in 2018, as you know. And I just bring this up because, not that your goal is to just make the playoffs once every 7 years. That's not a game plan. But what I'm saying is Wayne Rooney came, and a special iconic player. DC and I went from last place to the playoffs. And they quite frankly, in 2018, they owned this town. That may be too strong of a term, but the town was buzzing about what was going on. And it's almost like the same thing I just described with the Ovechkin. Washington was not much of a hockey town. Then all of a sudden they get on this incredible last place, literally, in November of 2007, and then they're in the playoffs. So sometimes when you have these incredible last to first, we all love that because we all identify with that because at some point in our careers or our lives, we've been lower than low, and then all of a sudden you want to know that there's a chance for brightness at the end of the day. So we go into 2019 and, make the playoffs again, quite frankly. But, Wayne, at that point, I don't think it was a situation that was working out where, his family was totally on board about being over here. That's just my opinion. And I think he probably wanted to stay, but it didn't work out. So that was a gamble that brought us some joy and success, but not a long-term fix. And so now what's disappointing is Troy Lesense is like an Hernan Losada. It's another 18-month experiment that did not work out. You have to have, and you can, and Jim Curtin in Philadelphia, and there's certainly Peter Vermees, for a long time in Kansas City. You'd like to get in that situation where it is a program that is running, and this is not just a soccer thing. Let me throw out Greg Popovich in the San Antonio Spurs, Jerry Lucas. I'm going a little old school here, Utah Jazz. My point being, it's it's a crazy business when you think about it. What does everybody want? Consistency. But what don't they have? Stability, because there's the hardest decision to make is sometimes the one you don't make. I think the hardest decision is, and it had to be, do I fight Troy Lesense now? It's obviously been made. It's easy for us as fans and supporters to always want to get rid of the coach or get rid of the broadcaster or whatever. No. But it's not. It's whether it was the right decision, you're not going to know. It's hindsight. It's like we just went through this with the NBA draft, and you don't know about this NBA draft or any NBA draft until 5 years down the road. So you're asking people to make decisions based on players that you really don't know about. But that's what it is. That's what it makes it wonderful. But that's also, DC United is look at the pressure Chicago has had being out of the playoffs. This is not a league where being out of the playoffs for a lot of years should be acceptable, and can't be, because as we even talk here tonight, DC United still has a chance to get on a run. So that's great for the fans, but it also is an indictment of the last few years that goodness gracious, we should have found a way to at least make the playoffs.
Agree, absolutely agree with you, Dave. As we get to a close here with your segment, if you don't mind me asking, obviously you've been diagnosed with MS. You've been fighting it for a while now. You go into your appointments. I know. How has that fight been going for you? And I know you're strong about it, and you're a strong man, and I know you're going to get through this.
Well, I appreciate that, and I appreciate people's support of the National Multiple Sclerosis Society. I mean that, with all the heart. As I was diagnosed in 2019 with primary progressive multiple sclerosis. I just had, and he's a wonderful doctor at Hopkins, as he evaluated me. And he was frank. He said, quite frankly, 6 years in, 5 years in, I expect you to be worse off, because we don't have a cure yet. We don't have a way to stop it. But what we do have is a way to slow it. I know I'm talking and walking and still rocking and rolling. I may not be fun to walk, but I'm still doing all the things I want to do because there is a treatment called Ocrevus, in my case, that slows it down. But there's now like 24 treatments out there. I can only take one of them because of the stage I'm at. The point being, because when we give and we support different causes, and there's so much need out there, not just MS, but wow, what a difference the support people have given over the years make, because these drugs are expensive to develop. Twice a year I get an infusion that costs $75,000. That's $150,000 to keep me upright and talking. My point being is when my mom had it and she lost her life to it in 1979, there were 0 treatments. But because they didn't give up, they didn't keep trying, there was at least finally breakthroughs in the 1990s. And now, I really believe this is my final fight, and the next generation is going to see either an end to MS or a cure for MS. And partly because we have so many more resources available, not only money, but even the fact that we're having this connection on this computer. This is the good part of social media, or whatever you want to call it. Ideas that in 1975 were difficult to share with researchers in Japan or researchers here, they can just click an email and it can happen, and they can make advancements. So thank you for that time, and thank you as always for your support.
And I thank you for being back on the show, and I hope to see you rocking and rolling again, as always, in our nation's capital at Audi Field.
Good. I look forward to it, Daniel. Thank you.
You're welcome. Dave Johnson, radio voice of DC United, of course, also the Washington Wizards voice and NBC Washington local stations. Thank you again, Dave, and have a good night.
You as well.
All right. Thank you. Once again, that's Dave Johnson, DC United radio broadcaster, and always a great pleasure to have that man on my show. My next guest right now covers the Tampa Bay Rowdies for RBLR Sports, and the amazing, unbelievable hiring out of nowhere a couple of weeks ago, bringing over Dominic Casciato from the Union Omaha of USL League One. Joining me right now, James Knowles. James, welcome back. How are you, sir? And when I saw that plastered on my social media page, I could not believe how the Rowdies somehow grabbed him after a USL League One championship victory, and now he's with the Rowdies.
Yeah, obviously this was a surprise for us down here as well at RBLR Sports. I don't think any of us saw it coming. Our producer will sometimes have little links to people within the organization, let us know like, hey, this news is coming out beforehand, but don't let it out, because if you want to prepare for it, then you can get all this whatever. No, we didn't have anything. We had no news that this was coming up ahead of time. And all of a sudden, then we had Dominic Casciato coming in, and we had to go and, all right, let's look into him. Let's get his background. Let's get all of the records and what's his formation, what's his preferred style, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, it was a very on the fly for us, and we're the fan podcast, so it doesn't really matter what we think, so to speak. It's all about what the club is trying to do, and the club appears, at least at this point, to be trying to salvage the season, because obviously the Rowdies did not start very well. They didn't continue very well over the course of the rest of the couple of months, but we have seen a little bit of life recently, and I think that this is a sign from the club that they want to make a go of it in 2025. Obviously, I think 2026 is going to be a bigger prize, but they're not letting 2025 just get away from them and be a lost season, so to speak.
No, absolutely. And there's plenty of time to fix this and at least get over that playoff line to make the Eastern Conference playoffs out of USL Championship. If you want to go on YouTube and look up my interview with Dominic Casciato, you can go ahead and take a look. So maybe that'll give you a better idea as well about the man himself. And I had him on my show. Fun man, awesome time, straight shooter, just a fun person to talk to. Obviously, Union Omaha is not in a good position right now in League One, and I guess this is what made the move better for Casciato and maybe for Union Omaha to say, okay, look, you gave us a couple great years, you gave us a championship last year, and maybe it's time to move on into better horizons. And here he comes. Did you talk to any Rowdies fans that or contacted you and say, what in the hell just happened here?
You could say that. I don't remember specifically who said what about afterwards, but I think the general consensus was the news dropped and everybody's reaction was exactly that. It was, what the hell just happened here? I think I remember seeing several in the supporters group Discord server saying just what. So that should be a pretty good indication of where we were. Like I said, huge surprise, but also at the same time, I think that it's a pretty motivating thing for a fan base. We obviously got rid of our head coach, I think right before the first home game of the season, so that must have been still in March. And we haven't had an officially named head coach over the course of the season. We've had an interim head coach, which is Steve Coleman. And I think that Steve Coleman, like I said, he was starting to turn things around. It was a slow process because there were and are a lot of problems. But this is something that this is something that will bring people back and give them interest again, give them interest in a season that, as I said, at this point had looked like a write-off. Well, 2025, we're not going to do that well. Maybe half the team is going to be lost. We'll see what happens in 2026. No, maybe there is still some life in this group. Maybe there's still some talent on the roster, which I personally would agree. I would personally say that there is plenty of talent on the roster. This is giving fans and the players, I think, a reason to believe in themselves for the rest of the year. And like I said, playoffs are where we want to be. It's not out of the realm of possibility because 8 teams qualify. In terms of the actual numbers, we're not that far off of a playoff position. The points are going to be difficult to come by because every team that we play is going to be a good team. But it's something that we can achieve. If you get yourself into the postseason, nobody knows what happens from there. Phoenix proved that only a couple of years ago. So I think that we can start to build this year, at least for 2026, if not starting to actually do some good stuff right now.
Mhm. What have you seen during training at the same time since he has officially come over? What have you seen from him on the pitch with his tactics inside his technical area?
Yeah, so obviously we've only had the one game, and I think that he only started in the middle of last week, so probably Wednesday or Thursday, actually handling things on the field at the training grounds off of Waters Avenue in Tampa. So we don't have a big sample size to go off of, but I think that the way that I would look at this is the Rowdies have generally for the last several years played with 3 at the back, 2 wing backs, and then you figure out exactly based on who's available who should be playing in front of them. Largely that is Lewis Hilton, a central midfield partner, and then you have some type of attacking midfielder and striker combination, whatever that may be. The roster that was built this season, I think also reflects a goal of playing that same system. There are plenty of center back options to fill in those 3 at the back. There are multiple players who can operate at the wing back spot. And I think that Dominic Casciato, over the course of his time with Union Omaha, played a relatively similar role. So what this means to me is that I think the club was looking at available options, and available options, I don't know if that extends beyond the USL. I don't know if it doesn't, but at least within the USL, obviously Dominic Casciato has a very good record in the USL League One, and he plays the same system that the Rowdies roster, again, appears to be built for. So I think that that's a very proactive step for us to go and get somebody who knows kind of what he's dealing with, at least on the field with the player personnel. And then if you look at it off the field as well, he knows what he's dealing with in terms of what it takes to play in the USL. It's an incredible amount of travel. It's an incredible amount of time on the road and weird schedules. And you have to keep all of these things in mind in a country as vast as we have here. So he ticks a lot of boxes that way. I think that he is a coach that can play to the strengths of his team so far, which again are probably in the wingback positions with Lewis Hilton in front of the defense and a midfield partner. Now we've brought in another midfielder as well in the attacking midfield position. So we have a couple good options there. Ollie Bassett and Leo Fernandez were present prior to this, and then Luis Alvarez was brought in from USL League One. So those are 3 good attacking midfield options. We've got a couple of good strikers to play with. He's got all of the tools that he needs to fill in a system that he would already be predisposed to use. He just needs to start adding his little tweaks and whatever he sees fit to make it his own system. And hopefully, obviously, that leads to good success on the field.
Absolutely. And of course, obviously, the most northern part you have to go to is Rhode Island and Pawtucket. And as far south, not too far, is down in Miami over to FIU until they move into their new stadium, hopefully. But look, those trips it's a killer. Going up and down the Atlantic Ocean, obviously, that Atlantic seaboard, it's really a killer.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that we will still have some trips out west, but even going like you said, up the Eastern Seaboard. If you are talking about the amount of travel that teams in America have to do, it's probably comparable with only a couple of other countries in the world and what their players are going to have to deal with. You might see that in Australia or China, Russia, maybe Brazil would be another one. But in England, where let's say a couple of players on the Rowdies roster grew up, their largest away days you could do on a bus. I really don't think I really don't even think that you want to be on a bus to Charleston, you know? That's a pretty long distance, let alone North Carolina, let alone Loudoun United,
Mm-hmm.
Pittsburgh.
Yep.
Obviously, you said Rhode Island. These are teams that are you cannot do that on a bus.
No.
I wouldn't. It's hard to do that if you're doing a road trip and you have the ability to kind of control how many people are in your car. So yeah, I think that knowing the physical landscape of the USL, knowing the roster restraints that come with, you have to work with a certain budget, you have to work with probably within a certain other constraints in terms of scouting ability and all that kind of stuff. I think that Dominic Casciato, like I said earlier, I use the phrase ticks a lot of boxes, and that's what it is. He ticks a lot of boxes in terms of actual know-how for USL competition.
No, absolutely. And as I'm trying to look at the standings as much as I can here um, for the Eastern Conference, as I'm trying to look it up right now, like you said, you're not too far off in the for the playoff line. Obviously, still plenty of time to play catch up. I mean, Birmingham Legion has had a bad year. Detroit City has. I mean, I know they're in seventh place, but I mean, this is not Detroit City like at all. I just feel like they're always in the top four of the Eastern Conference. So to see them in the seventh position is not good. In the 11 has been up and down as well. I mean, there is a real opportunity here for Tampa Bay to get on a run and to surprise one of the bottom, I would say, in the playoff positioning, maybe the bottom 3 or 4. Pittsburgh might be getting a little bit better, but still, though, I would probably say 6 through 8, you have an opportunity to jump over one of those 3 teams.
Yeah, I agree, and I think that the front office people at the Rowdies saw that there was some growth. I do want to highlight that one more time. We were not in the dire straits that we were in April and May. May was obviously anybody who follows the Rowdies, anybody who saw any of our results, one in particular in that month, obviously, anybody who knows any of that, that was a very, very bad month. And I would say in the history of the club, it was that drastic. But I think that there were little signs of growth throughout June. Maybe the front office said that it wasn't enough. Maybe the front office saw that there was an opportunity and they jumped on it. We'll never know the background discussions naturally, but this is a chance for us to get a couple more of those points that we might not have won with a new head coach. Maybe we get that head coaching bump. Everybody loves that, and then we can actually start to push for those spots. That we're on 11 points right now. That doesn't sound like much because it's not, but the USL Championship playoff positions right now are not that far away. So if we can continue to push for that, then I don't think that we can't get this 18 points that is currently that far from us. That's 3 wins. It's 3 wins without other teams picking up points, sure, but we can string together some performances that actually put us in a position to challenge for that. I am convinced of that. If we can just get 2 or 3 in a row, I think that the players on the roster are good enough. They will start to realize again how good they are, get the confidence back that they honestly have been lacking for a good bit. And with the confidence comes a lot more. You trust yourself to play to do things in certain situations and to win the ball in certain situations. So if they can get that, it might actually help even more. And that'll come with results.
No, absolutely. And I'm very excited to see where the Rowdies are going to go from here on up. I mean, it's going to be on the way up, can't go back down. And hopefully, they will sneak into the playoffs at the end of the regular season. How was their Jägermeister Cup season as well? Are they still alive barely, or were they eliminated from that?
Actually, so the Jaeger Cup games have mostly coincided with when the Rowdies started to do a little bit better. So the first one, we were we were beating Miami FC of the USL Championship 3-0 before halftime, and they came back and made it 3-3, and we lost on penalties. So that was not a good result. The next two, though, in the Jaeger Cup, we have won. So that's very positive, and we actually lead our group right now. We have a chance to move on to the next stage as long as we continue this. As long as we continue this run, like I said, it coincided with us doing a little bit better. And the next game that we have in the Jaeger Cup will be against Charleston. Now, that's obviously going to be a very big game because Charleston is very good. Although the one thing to note is they are currently bottom of our group. So maybe they've kind of written this off and maybe it won't be as tough of an individual game just because Charleston kind of see the writing on the wall for that competition. I don't know. Again, that'll be something that they talk about in the locker rooms. It won't be something that ever sees the light of day for us, the normal fans. But if Charleston aren't as bothered with the Jaeger Cup and we are already leading, maybe we have a chance to get something there, get out of our group. And again, if you make the postseason, whether it's in this cup competition or the league, at that point, it kind of is open season. We've seen first and second seeds, I think last year, both lost and dropped out. So it's not something that's unheard of. It's unlikely, sure, but it's not something that's unheard of. So if we can put ourselves in the best position after the actual season or after the group stage in the Jaeger Cup specifically have played out, then we have as good a chance as anybody else to move on to the next round and the next round.
No, absolutely. As they always say, a wounded animal is more dangerous than a healthy one. That's for sure. And even though the Rowdies have had wounded pride all this time, they are coming out of it, and it looks like that they might get a big opportunity right now with a fresh head coach. And as you said, as always, a new head coach bump can always put a club into the driver's seat and basically keep that foot on the gas.
Yeah. That's what I'm hoping for.
Mhm.
I really do think that this is a pretty good roster. There are some players who are aging where maybe they won't be viable next year, maybe they won't be viable the year after that. But I do think the vast majority of them are still good players who can contribute, especially at a USL championship level. We've seen it from all of them for several years now, the vast majority of them, at least for several years now, and they can still do it. They just truly, my opinion is they need to be reminded that they are capable of this. And you get the results, you get the confidence back. And I think that we're putting ourselves with that in a position to actually go and do some good things.
Now, just out of curiosity, from my own perspective or my own, wonder, is Lucky Makosa still on the team or no?
No, he is not. He retired, and I believe he's actually coaching around the area. But yeah, he's a fan favorite down here. I think he is also. I don't know if he's still doing it at the moment, but he was writing children's books related to soccer and running a charity organization to try and bring soccer to people in his native Zimbabwe as well. I believe that's how, partly how he made his way to the U.S. and got to Dartmouth University, where he then became a professional soccer player afterwards. But there are a lot of people naturally in that country who are not going to have a lot of opportunities to do similar things. So if you can give people an opportunity to play soccer, soccer is, if you want to look at it this way, often a way out of poverty. It has been for plenty of people. And it's a way at least to give you good connections to go to schools. And so I think that he's got a lot on his plate, even though he isn't playing. But yeah, we love Lucky down here.
Oh, a great player. I remember him back in the day when the Harrisburg City Islanders were still around in USL. Unfortunately, not around anymore. But I remember he played for them, played for the Cosmos, and then he finished off with Tampa Bay. And, every time you needed a goal late in the game, who else you call for? You call for Lucky, and he's right there at the right time.
Yep, absolutely.
Absolutely. Anyway, James, I appreciate your time as always. Thank you for joining me again tonight. Let's see what Casciato can do, and this should be a lot of fun.
I hope so. Hey, if you're already bottom of the table, there's nowhere to go but up, right?
Exactly. Thanks again, James. I'll talk to you again soon, okay?
Thank you.
Once again, James Knowles, RBLR Sports, talking about the Tampa Bay Rowdies and their brand new head coach in Dominic Casciato, who came over from Union Omaha of USL League One. And Tampa Bay now has a lifeline for this season. And we'll see what's going to be for 2026. But once again, they have a lifeline right now for the 2026-25 season. But obviously, 2026 will be the number one thing made for this club for the future. So hold on tight. Look out, USL Championship. The Rowdies might be on the way back, and they could grab a playoff spot. We'll have to wait and see what's going to happen. Now, time to talk about the New York Red Bulls and their last match against the Philadelphia Union this past weekend. I was supposed to be a 2-for-2 week between the Red Bulls and the Union, and unfortunately, for the Open Cup game, it got rained out, severely rained, took over, lightning, thunderstorms, basically waterlogged pitch. Just couldn't play that match. Got rescheduled once again for Wednesday, August 13th at Subaru Park. So we'll see what happens in that one. But anyway, just to talk about this one, it's very, very difficult and very, very disheartening when you have a Red Bulls team that, okay, fine, you're ready to go in the Open Cup. It didn't happen, but you got to bring back that same intensity for the league game, even though you didn't play the Open Cup game. And to have that start at Subaru Park was absolutely disgusting. Just a joke. Just terrible to see them not communicating, not being ready for it, not able to play your game. And unfortunately, they messed up big time once again. It was a corner kick from the far side in the 9th minute. And even though Carlos Coronel made a fantastic save, a diving right-handed save to keep the ball out, no one could track the ball, and Indiana Vasiliev made it 1-0 on the rebound, roofing that shot. And then the second goal came in the 24th minute, and that came from Bruno Damiani, who got a great ball from Quinn Sullivan, sprung him, and he beats Carlos Coronel and the defender into the back of the net, 2-0. And even though the Red Bulls did make some adjustments, make some substitutions, it just wasn't enough. Now, look, obviously it's a team loss. The entire team lost that game because give credit to the Philadelphia Union. They were wonderful. They outclassed the Red Bulls. And that, my friends, is something that cannot happen again, either back at Subaru Park for that quarterfinal matchup in the Open Cup or when they come back in league play to Sports Illustrated Stadium against the Red Bulls at home. That cannot happen again. They must engage with the Union. They must do better against the Union. Look, Bradley Carnell has done an amazing job with this club. They're doing wonderful things over there. We'll have to wait and see what he does for the second season once this year ends. But I also want to say this. And honestly, I don't, you look at the team as an entirety on why they lost that game. But I have to say it. I have to say it. And I'm going to have to be honest with you that Kyle Duncan, unfortunately, caused that loss. Kyle Duncan, I know he tries hard. I know he works his butt off. And I know he's not trying to allow silly goals to get scored on. But, I mean, he was looking for that ball for no reason after Carlos Coronel made that save. And even though Coronel gave up the rebound, the truth of the matter is this. Kyle Duncan should have cleared that ball out. He really should have. And at the same time, he fell asleep. And not just him, the back line also fell asleep. But he allowed Bruno Damiani to stay onside. And when he tried to rush back, it didn't matter anymore anyway, because he was already chipping Carlos Coronel at the goal. I'm sorry, but Kyle Duncan has to do better. He really does have to do better in that one. He really does. And, you know, it's really, really frustrating to see poor defending in the opening 45 minutes. It really is. You got to be ready to go. And we've seen too much poor starts from this Red Bull team. And it's not just facing against poor opposition and giving them free shots, free chances on goal. But when you're taking on one of the top 3 clubs in the Eastern Conference that the Union are right now, that can't happen. That cannot happen. And the way the Union were giving wave after wave after wave of defending and then attacking and just looking like a well-oiled machine, Red Bulls had no shots of any kind, regular shots or shots on goal. Nothing in the opening 45. That's the first time I've ever seen Andre Blake not break a sweat in this game. The opening 45, the closing 45, or the entire 90. Andre Blake was never requested to make a huge save. He was in position. He stopped a save that he made a save that really shots weren't that deadly. They weren't that threatening. And it was very frustrating. And it's not just as frustrating because the Union looked really good defensively, but it's double frustrating when you are not prepared or you're not ready to go mentally. And you could see Sandro Schwarz in his technical area yelling, screaming, animated. What is going on here? Come on, boys, get it together. And what's happened? Huh? What's going on? It's just frustrating to see that Red Bull team out there on the pitch at Subaru Park and not have anything going in their favor. And when they were finally getting chances, barely on frame, barely at the net, maybe 1 to 2, maybe even 3 chances that Andre Blake made a stop. Not a save, but a stop. And I mean, you're just sitting there watching this match and you feel so frustrated to see this club just not stringing anything together. Obviously, they're going to need some help here in the summer transfer window. It's already open and active. And obviously, you're hearing about the rumors going around. The agents are interfering and everything with Timo Werner. That's what we're hearing right now through the rumor mill. Look, if Timo wants to be on that World Cup squad for Germany in 2026 when they do qualify, he's got to find a club right now because Leipzig's not going to take him back. And it sounds like no other club in Europe wants him back either or wants to bring him on. So he should just tell his agent and just tell him, I'm ready to sign my contract and I'm ready to play some football with the New York Red Bulls because we all know where the World Cup's going to be in North America. And he'll be here in North America, in the United States. So he needs to tell his agent, stop messing around. I'll sign the deal and I'm ready to go. And so he can be up top with Eric Maxime Choupo-Moting and then having balls played to him by Emil Forsberg and even Lewis Morgan when he returns from his quad injury. It's really that simple. It really is. whatever the money that the Rebels are offering Timo Werner, just already tell the agent, I'm going to take it. Let's go. Stop messing around. Let's move forward. Get this deal done. This club needs goals, not just at home, but on the road. And if you bring him now, he'll be ready to go for that quarterfinal in the Open Cup. It's really time to stop messing around, get the act together, and just already say, Harrison, New Jersey is my home. Sports Illustrated Stadium is my home. I'm ready to join the New York Red Bulls, and I'm ready to go with Choupo-Moting and Forsberg. So that's all I can say about that. But once again, the New York Red Bulls this past Saturday fell to the Philadelphia Union by a final of 2-0. This week, tomorrow night, the New York Red Bulls will be hosting the New England Revolution. And then on Saturday, Inter Miami comes to Sports Illustrated Stadium. So a 6-point week up for grabs before they go back on the road to take on the Chicago Fire. And then after that, it's Leagues Cup action. So that's all you can say. That's all you can do. Get ready for this. And hopefully it's a 6-point week for the Red Bulls. We'll have to wait and see. But we will have to see what the situation is going to be. And hopefully they can get those wins and move up the table in the Eastern Conference for the playoffs. Even though they're still hanging around in the wild card spot, the point is they must be in a better position. They must. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank my guests tonight. I want to thank DC United legendary broadcaster, radio and TV, Dave Johnson. I also want to thank James Knowles of RBLR Sports. My name is Daniel Feuerstein. Thank you very much for watching me tonight. Join me this coming Friday night for another NPSL soccer show as we're talking to these teams getting ready for their playoffs. Once again, my name is Daniel Feuerstein. Thank you for watching me tonight. And as always, please, 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 please enjoy your football. Thank you. Take care. So long and have a good night. Bye-bye for now. Have a good night, everybody.